Donald Bronax was born January 1st, 1961. Originally, he was convicted and sentenced to 99 years imprisonment for fatally shooting a friend in Birmingham, Alabama in 1977. He was released on work release in 1996, where he ended up murdering his wife and her grandson. In August 1977, the 16-year-old Donald got into an argument with his friend, 19-year-old Gregory Manson. In the midst of their scuffle, Donald pulled out a gun and fired 6 shots at Mason, who fell to the ground. After emptying out his clip, Donald reloaded and fired 3 more shots into Mason's body before finally leaving the crime scene. Approximately 3 months later, he was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The following year, he was convicted and sentenced to 99 years imprisonment, with a chance of parole after serving several years. In 1986, Donald was paroled and returned to Birmingham, Alabama. Within the next 2 years, he got into contact with Raymond, the Godfather Mims, a notorious local drug dealer who allowed him to live in one of his houses. The property was eventually raided by the police, who arrested Donald and seized several guns, as this was considered a violation of his parole. Donald was immediately returned to prison. In November 1992, he successfully applied for a work release program and was transferred to the Work Release Center in Alexander City. From there, Donald was hired as a painter for Wellborn Forest Products, where he was described as a very mild-mannered and nice by his employer. In January 1994, Donald married Jan Stamps, a 42-year-old woman who would often visit him in prison. On April 25th, Donald was allowed to leave prison to attend his job at the factory, where he managed to convince the supervisor that he was going to leave later. While he was working there, he was visited by his wife, who brought along their 4-year-old grandson, D'Angelo Stamps. After leaving the boy in the car, Jan entered the factory, where she was beaten to death with a plank by Donald. After the murder, Donald stuffed her body in the trunk of his white Dodge and drove away with D'Angelo in the car. From there, Donald drove to an isolated section of Eaton Village, where he got D'Angelo out of the car and beat him to death as well. He then stuffed the boy's body in the trunk of the car next to his grandmother and parked it in front of a vacant house. Donald then hitched a ride to the Work Release Center, where he attempted to hide his bloodied uniform and boots under his bed. The clothing was found by 2 other inmates and reported to the prison guards, who immediately detained Donald. After linking him to the double murder, Donald was charged with 2 counts of capital murder. On June 6, 1997, the jury found Donald guilty on all counts and recommended that he be sentenced to death. As of August 2022, Donald remains on death row and is awaiting execution.